Could K-animation become the next K-content leader? Well, in North America, Korean-made animation, The King of Kings, is already the king among Korean animation movies targeted at the overseas market. Now today, we want to delve into the K-animation world with our movie expert Jae Soh, professor and filmmaker at Seoul Institute of the Arts. Hello, Professor Soh.
Hi, nice to be back.
Well, let's start with this outstanding performance of the Made in Korea animation movie, The King of Kings. This is already writing history in the K-animation industry. So, for now, outside of Korea for now, but can you tell us about the achievement we're seeing?
Yeah, it's actually a kind of a milestone because it's a completely Korean, produced animation feature film, 3D, and it was produced by Mofak Studio, which does a lot of special effects in Korea. And the director, Jae Soh, actually, he created the animation based on the Charles Dickens story about Jesus called Life of Our Lord. And it's like a children's sort of version of the Bible. And so King of Kings, basically, they made this huge animation. I think the production was like one of the most expensive productions in Korea. And right now, as of today, it's in the US alone, it's brought in $60 million in the box office. Worldwide, it's 66 million. And it's going to have a release in Korea as well. But one of the cool things about it is it's Korean produced things, and it's got a huge, the voice actors in it are, Oscar Isaacs from, Star Wars, Pierce Brosnan, Kenneth Branagh, Uma Thurman, Mark Hamill. So you have these big stars sort of comprising the roles of the biblical figures in the thing. And also, what I'm kind of proud of the film is that it was completely made in Korea. And some of the people that worked on it, like the music, for example, Kim Tae-sung did the music, and he did music for movies like 1987, When the Day Comes. So he's a Korean composer, and even for animation like this, they actually use a cinematographer, and the cinematographer is Kim Young, who's also a huge cinematographer in Korea with movies like 1987 and other notable films. So it's I think it'll kind of open doors for Korean animation worldwide. So I think it's a really good sign.
I mean, although they did have that strategy already, I guess the makers, I saw some interviews, they even were surprised that this movie did actually this great outside of Korea already.
Right, and the film was made in Korea, but it was released first in North America. This approach of targeting a foreign audience first, would you say this is kind of like the new chapter in the potential of K-animation future production?
Well, I think it's definitely kind of a first in the sense that it was something that most productions done in Korea are made for Korean audiences, and then if you're lucky, like Parasite, it gets the audiences outside of Korea. But this movie, from the get-go, all the voices were done in English. So it was targeted for a sort of an English sort of audience, for the movie. And I think it does open a new chapter in animation. Korean animation has a very deep history. It started in 1936 with a movie called Gaekum. So we've had a very long line, and also recently, we've had hits like, Heartspring, Teeny Pig of Love, and the Exorcism Chronicles. So there seems to be sort of a trend towards animation right now. And I think The King of Kings was something, I think, director Jae Soh, who runs a CG VFX company, he did it as a labor of love, really. And he's a, devoted Christian himself. So I think in America, especially because it's a very religious country, people don't really think that, but so this movie really hit, I think, a nerve with them. And I'm really surprised by the numbers as well. Yeah.
Well, I'm also very excited of how the movie will do in Korea later in the year. But speaking of also, you mentioned Parasite before, but director Pongjuno and also director Kim Tae-yong, some big names, they are also in the process of making K-animation productions. What do you make of their attempt?
Well, it's been in the sort of the news a lot. Especially with director Pongjuno, who just finished Mickey 17, people are like, what are you doing next? And he's wanted to do an animation feature for a long time. So the working title right now is called The Valley. It's based on a Claire Nouvien's short story, I guess a novella called The Deep Extraordinary Creatures of the Abyss. So it happens underwater. And again, like Mofak, there's a company called The Fourth Creative Party, which is a Korean-based sort of VFX CG company that's doing all the effects on that. And director Pong, if you think of Okja, we had the super pig in it. In Mickey 17, you had the creepers. So he's really into sort of creatures and building, world building. So, I think it's a natural extension of that as well. But we also have, as you mentioned, Kim Teong is coming out in the same year, I think in 2027, when the release is happening, with a movie called Gokdu. And this one is kind of an animation based on sort of a Korean sort of situation where in the past, in the Joseon dynasty, when somebody of higher sort of, the lords would die, they would make a sort of a little, I guess like a big puppet of the actual person and put it inside, with the person. So it's a story like that based on sort of traditional Korean culture and history. So I think it's interesting that two directors that are kind of already in their own sort of world building stage are going into a genre like animation, which seemingly is happening at the same time. Yeah.
So it looks like in a couple of years from now, we'll be able to watch those as well, but we won't have to wait that long for this one that we're going to talk now. So let's talk about the first Korean animated film to debut on Netflix, which is Lost in Starlight, or 이별의 필요한 in Korean, or 별의 필요한, I should maybe say. But it is coming in a week from now. So what are your expectations? I mean, we just mentioned director Pongjuno, and he actually also spoke well of this one.
Right. This is an animation feature that's going to be playing on Netflix, and it's launching on, I think, the May 30th. And I've only seen the teaser for this, but the animation style is really fantastic. I think for a Korean animation, it's different from, the land of anime is actually Japan, a lot of Japanese animation, but I think it has a kind of a different feel to it. And the stars behind it is Kim Tae-ri, plays the main lead, and then Hong Kyung plays the love interest. So it's kind of a romantic story about sort of it's based on like a future of Seoul, like in 2050, and the main character, the woman, wants to go to Mars, space exploration, and the male character, Jae, is a musician. And so it's their love story, and basically done in a Korean style, but done in animation. As you mentioned, director Pongjuno really liked it because I think he talked about how the visual storytelling is really amazing in it. And the director, actually, her name is Han Ji-won, and she won this movie called Coffee Rack at the Seoul Indie Animation Film Festival a couple years ago. She won the grand prize for that. So I think this is based on that. I think Netflix gave her a chance to make a movie, and it's the first sort of like full-length Korean feature on, basically done on Netflix. So really looking forward to it. And I think I heard some of the techniques they used in it was they used a lot of motion capture. So the actors basically, when they were recording their sounds, actually put movement in to their acting, which were kind of reflective of the final product as well. So I think what's great about animation is that you could create everything from scratch, and that's also the hard part. It's painstakingly long, so it's taken a couple of years, but it's now about to see everybody else, the audiences, and we'll see how they react to this story.
Right.
Well,
Very
let's
soon.
tune into that one.
May 30th, we'll mark our calendar on Netflix. A lot of K animations are doing great. Why do you think Korean animation is, in the spotlight these days? Was it always the strength, or do you think it's kind of showing progress these days?
Well, I actually think Korean animation has as I told you before, it has a rich history. We've had, in 1936, the first animation done, and then we have Robot Taekwon V, and the Citizen of Bucheon, Dooley. We've had a rich history like this, and also, I don't know if a lot of people know, but since the 80s, well up to the early 2000s, Korean animators were doing big animations in America, like Family Guy, Simpsons, all of that, the actual drawings were done in Korea. So we have sort of the artistry and sort of the craft and the technology behind doing it. Now everything is done digital, but cell animation Korea was one of the best. So I think now, we're finally getting sort of a spotlight for it. Just like, it started with K-drama, K-pop, then K-cinema, and now it's K-animation. So it's finally getting its sort of day in the sun, so to speak, and the audience will probably recognize it. But for us, it's like finally, it's happening.
I see. Well, Professor Soh, let's shift now gears to the 78th Cannes Film Festival. We have to mention it because it's wrapping up tomorrow on a Saturday. And Korean director Ho Ga-young has won the first prize of the La Cinef Award, an award that's dedicated to student-made movies. That's very exciting. Please tell us about it.
Right. So it's La Cinef has a rich history of showing short films, basically, student works. And Korea has had sort of a success in that section. In 2009, it was a brother and a sister house won sort of the third place by director Jae Soh. And in 2023, which was just recently, there's a movie by Hwang Hae-in called Whole, which won second place. And then, now we have basically First Summer by Ho Ga-young that just won the first prize for this. And the story, I think, is really unique. I think it really tugged at a lot of people's heartstrings because it's about sort of a grandmother, an older woman, who falls in love with a slightly younger man. And they meet at basically like a nightclub for elderly, and so they're dancing. So it's very romantic like that. But unfortunately, the person that she likes dies, and then she has the dilemma because the day of his funeral coincides with her granddaughter's wedding. Oh. So what is she going to do? So it's a really great story, and I think. It really hit the audiences in France and Europe, basically, and even the director, who's a graduate or still going to KAFA, which is Korean university. Basically, it's a film academy. Pongjuno is also a graduate of that. So I think we've gradually started to have success in that area. But I think for now, as you know, Cannes didn't really have any Korean feature films this year. So, at least we have like an animation there right now, and then, this La Cinef short as well.
Right.
And also, we're going to stay with Cannes, but also going back to K-Animation. For the first time, a Korean animated short film by director Jung Yoo-mi titled Glasses was invited to compete at the short film category. What was your assessment on this film?
Well, I haven't seen the movie. It's really hard to get a hold of these movies that have just come out. But basically, again, it's sort of the story, like you said, Glasses, is about somebody that breaks her glasses and then she gets an eye exam and suddenly falls into a sort of a dreamlike state, and basically you go into this whole story. So it's about a 15-minute film, directed by sort of a newcomer as well. So I think, again, I think whether it's animation or feature films, I think people really want to see really good storytelling. And I think both Glasses and First Summer, which are both at Cannes this year, they've succeeded because of the stories that they're telling. I think Glasses is sort of done in a style that, again, it's hand-drawn animation with digital technology put in there. So I think, Korean artistry, Korean filmmaking, now Korean storytelling is really finding audiences all around the world. And I wouldn't say because Cannes didn't really pick a lot of Korean cinema this year, except for these two films, that we're in trouble, because Cannes is kind of famous for not really spotlighting Asian cinema per se. We've had successes with Old Boy or movies by Lee Chang-dong there, but traditionally other festivals like Berlin or Venice, those are the sort of the festivals that really highlight sort of Asian cinema. So I wouldn't be too upset that not a lot of Korean films were in competition at Cannes this year.
All right, so we have the success in these two short films, and maybe it could be a task for the next year to have a more lineup, a bigger lineup of Korean movies. But as you said, it's nothing to worry too much about, I guess. Well, thank you very much for your insights today, Professor Soh, and have a great weekend.
Thank you,
Thank
Professor.
you.
And thank you, Bella, as always. Have a great weekend and see you next week.
Yes, I'll see you back next week.